Hello everyone and welcome to this webinar from Bluewater Holidays. My name's Jenny Wade and I am the Commercial Director here at Bluewater. For those of you who aren't familiar with Bluewater Holidays, we are a specialist cruise agency based in Skipton in North Yorkshire, and we specialise in small ship, river, luxury and niche cruise holidays. And today on this webinar, we are going to be talking about Hurtigruten, and we are joined from Hurtigruten by James Howlett, who is the UK Trade Partnerships Manager. James, welcome.
Hi there, Jenny, you okay?
Good. Hello, yes, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you very much. Thanks for having me on today.
No, nice to have you here and to learn a little bit more about Hurtigruten. Ironically, Hurtigruten were actually the first company that I ever cruised with when I joined Bluewater Holidays back in 2007. I did a short Northern Lights cruise from Tromsø to Trondheim. Just trying to think it's the right way around, but I think I have. It was
southbound.
Yeah, that's right. It was fantastic, and we saw the Northern Lights, so that was the icing on the cake. It was a bucket list tick-off moment, although I did go back and do them again in 2010 because I knew how much my mum wanted to see them. So not just once, but twice I've cruised with Herituation. Fantastic experiences, although I know you're going to talk about it a little bit more during this presentation, but of course it's not just the Norwegian coast now. You've also ventured much more into your expedition cruising, which looks fantastic. So I will hand over to you now anyway, rather than talking about all your content and leaving you with nothing to discuss. I'll hand over to you and let you discuss with our listeners a little bit more about Hurtigruten. So thank you, James.
So I'm going to talk about obviously the main bread and butter with Herituation, which is our Coastal Express product, and then something which is relatively new that we've expanded over the last few years, which is our expedition cruising. We've taken all the elements that make us fantastic at coastal and we're moving that over onto the expedition side. And like Jenny says, we're not just going to those cold water destinations that a lot of people may potentially know us for. We're going to some warm water expeditions, and that product line is expanding so much over the course of the next few years. It's very exciting. So first off, before I get started, I'm just going to show you a brief video just to introduce Hurtigruten before I go on to the history of Hurtigruten and the products that we offer.
Norway is home to more natural wonders than you can count. In addition to an epic coastline with world-famous fjords, the untouched nature includes mountains, forests, limitless lakes and glaciers. The midnight sun lights up endless summer days, and in winter, the northern lights often dance across the skies, a colorful contrast to the pure white snow covering the ground. Norway is also home to Hurtigruten and has been so since 1893. Our famous Coastal Express has connected 34 remote communities along the Norwegian coast for more than 125 years. We still faithfully sail all seasons of the year and provide a vital service to the locals here. This is why sailing with us on the original Coastal Express is described as a legacy journey. A timeless and classical voyage where you take part in the everyday life of coastal Norway. Sail through breathtaking scenery, eat locally produced food, visit ports that include large cities, small towns, and secluded hamlets most vessels are unable to reach. You'll be traveling with a national icon, encounter the beating heart of Norway, and be part of living history.
Okay, so in terms of Hurtigruten, so we've been actually, as of next year, it's our 130-year anniversary from next year. So very exciting. So Hurtigruten actually started in Norway, and what Hurtigruten were is that lifeline between the different communities along the coast of Norway. So you can imagine all throughout the year when you get into those winter months and the ice, etc., and the darker months, that it can be quite hard to navigate through Norway. And a lot of the communities reside along that beautiful coast of Norway, like Jenny said earlier on. So Tromsø and Trondheim, right up to the very top in Kirkenes, to Hurtigruten, the northernmost point of mainland Europe, and obviously down through to Bergen as well. So Hurtigruten started actually by taking goods and services to each of those individual villages, those little fishing communities. Now, whether that was post or parcels, or whether that was dropping off people, etc., or whether that was, you know, taking vital supplies to these areas during those colder months. Now, that's something that Hurtigruten have done for the last 130 years. They've been the one, that lifeline along that coast. And obviously, the scenery's changed, the land has changed, but what Hurtigruten still do is take those goods and services to each of those individual villages and towns, etc. So if you took on the coastal route, you can join it either for the full voyage, which is, you know, Bergen all the way up to Kirkenes, and then you depart from Kirkenes or add on some other bits as well. You can do the full voyage, which is Bergen to Kirkenes and then back again. You can do north or south. You can also do what they call port to port. So like Jenny said earlier, going from Tromsø to Trondheim. In October, I'm actually going to join the ship over in Kirkenes, and I'm going to sail all the way down to Trondheim, then depart and then do a land-based trip to Bergen, and then flying back from Oslo. So there's a lot of elements where you can tailor-make it, and the reason they do that is because it is still used to take people and goods and services, drops cars off, etc., all along those vital routes as well. Now, another great thing about the coastal route is, as Jenny mentioned before, in terms of the Northern Lights, which is that huge bucket list destination, that huge bucket list itinerary, during the months of 1st of October through to 31st of March, we have what's called our Northern Lights Promise. Now, because you're doing that full voyage, you're going to be spending quite a lot of time within the Arctic Circle, which is obviously the prime areas where you can see the Northern Lights. It's going to have limited light pollution, but you're also going into areas where during those winter months, it's darker for longer and so on. So as you sail that voyage, if the Northern Lights don't occur within that full voyage at least once, you get another week for free the following year. So you can do a 7 or a 6 night itinerary, which is basically the north or the south version. You can do that absolutely free of charge the following year. So again, just because they've got such faith in what they're going to see, I think the chances of not seeing them on the itineraries are about 1%. So fingers crossed, if you obviously get on board, you're not part of that 1%. But if you are, then at least you know you've got your holidays for next year sorted as well. But like I said, this itinerary goes every single month of the year, every single week, and it's got a very, very different experience to sailing there in summertime, where you've got the midnight sun, when you're going over from Bergen, you go into Tromsø, etc., into those unique areas over that Arctic Circle point. That's where you're going to be seeing the midnight sun, the further up north you go. And then when you go into the winter months, that's where you're going to be hopefully seeing the Northern Lights. Obviously, the Northern Lights can occur at any part, but your chances of seeing them are much higher over that Arctic Circle. And as it said before, there's 34 points north and 34 points south. So in total, 68 ports you're going to stop off at. Now, another great thing about this route, because it is dropping off those services to each of these individual destinations that you see along this route here, you're going to spend a little bit of time in destination. Your time in port will vary very, very massively between each of the different ports. Sometimes it's just for 30 minutes in the middle of the night. Sometimes it's for a little bit longer. If you're doing an excursion in somewhere that has got a very short drop-off point, what you'll actually do is meet the ship further along the coast, so you'll meet it in a different port. But it's an absolutely iconic route. It's something, like I say, Hurtigruten have done for the last 130 years, something they're very, very proud of. It's still very much rooted into our DNA as a Norwegian company, but it's something that has been able to follow on, that we've been able to expand into our expedition sector. When you're doing the Northern Lights during that winter, that period, we also do regional charters and regional departures from 8 regional airports around the UK. So you don't have to worry necessarily about getting to London. We can do the charters and those departures from very, very different airports. In terms of inclusions on board, because it is a very different product offering to Expedition, first off, it is full board. As long as you're doing the north or the southbound or the full route, it is a full board offering on board. The drinks aren't included, there are an extra, but you've got transfers included at destination. If you get on the regional charters, you obviously got return flights there as well. And all the ports along, you've got lots of optional excursions that you can do as well. And they vary from dog sledding to snowmobiling and so on and so forth. You can do sea eagle safaris, etc. as well. There's plenty of hikes that you can do as well. So if you want to be a little bit more active, you can absolutely do so on board as well. Now, that's hopefully giving you an idea about the coastal route, and obviously Hurtigruten is a little bit of history. What I'm going to do now is hopefully be able to talk to you all about our expedition product. So, as I said before, 130-year history. How Hurtigruten see themselves now is not necessarily a cruise company. As Jenny mentioned earlier on, in terms of Bluewater, their specialists, obviously running into niche and expedition and so on and so forth. Hurtigruten actually see themselves as an adventure travel company, not necessarily a cruise company, because we're sailing on those small ships. It's that small ship experience, but the most important thing is it's about the destination you're going to. It's about the regions you're visiting and what you're giving back to all those destinations as well. As I mentioned before, we've got Hurtigruten Expeditions and Hurtigruten Coastal Express. I'm just going to show you a short video all about Expedition. So, as I mentioned before, Hurtigruten have expanded their expedition lineup. When I first started in the travel industry, I worked for a tour company, and at the time, Hurtigruten had one ship that did Antarctica. That was their expedition lineup. Now they've got 8 ships across their expedition fleet, 2 of which were the first hybrid ships ever produced, Roald Amundsen and Fridtjof Nansen. Because they're hybrid ships, Hurtigruten's got a real big focus on sustainability. I know it's something that gets talked about quite a lot, but Hurtigruten really are at the forefront of that sustainable message. So we've been single-use plastic free since 2018. Every single person on board will get a metal water bottle, and there's various filling stations throughout the ship that people can use free of charge. We invest heavily in green technology. They've got a fleet-wide ban on heavy oils across the fleet now. All of the ships, if they're not hybrid powered currently, they're being refurbished to be hybrid powered, to be more sustainable, to be greener as well. And along that beautiful coastal route, actually 80% of the food and drink that we have on board comes from local suppliers that we're visiting. So we use beer from the most northerly brewery on the planet over in Svalbard, etc. So food from each of the ports that you're visiting, you'll see fresh food coming on every single day, vegetables and fresh fish and so on. So really, they really are at the forefront and one of the pioneers of that green messaging. Now, in terms of expedition, it offers something very, very different to a normal cruise. First off, you're going to be immersed in the destination you're going to be visiting. You're not going to be docking up there at port. I'll talk a little bit more about that process in just a short while, but just show you the destinations that you go to, so you don't think perhaps that expedition is only for those cold water destinations, which it absolutely is, but there's a lot more to it than that. So first off, Antarctica, one of the most amazing places you can go to for biodiversity into Antarctica. Going up into the north, into Alaska, those beautiful fjords, seeing bears and so on. Going around Greenland, Iceland, Svalbard, all along the coast of America as well, along that west coast, along that east coast. We do itineraries around the Caribbean, so actually visiting uninhabited islands, snorkeling, scuba diving in these beautiful regions, crossing the Panama Canal, going down the coast of South America to Machu Picchu and Peru, having some land-based options as well, circumnavigating the Galapagos Islands. We've also introduced this year West Africa and Cape Verde, so a beautiful, beautiful destination. Go around the Canary Islands as well, going along the coast of Spain, and of course we've got fantastic British Isles cruising that we do, as well as the Norwegian fjords and the coast of Norway itineraries as well. So there's a huge amount to do in expedition. So if you're someone that really wants to see a particular region, to see a particular destination, but perhaps get off the beaten track a little bit more, to see something unique, perhaps more interested in the wildlife, into the ecology, to the geology, the geography and the history of these places, an expedition cruise is really a fantastic way of doing that. Now, as I said before, we've got 8 ships on our expedition fleet. So our 2 brand new hybrid ships are there, MS Fridtjof Nansen, MS Roald Amundsen. You'll see there that they're 528 passengers as an absolute maximum. Now, when they travel to the Antarctic, that's limited to 500 passengers. We also have various no solo supplement offers throughout as well, which the guys at Bluewater help customers with, which means that we very rarely sail full. So you've got this beautiful small ship experience. You've got lots of time in the free areas if you want to, but lots of time to explore the destinations. You've got MS Fram, MS Maud, Sverdrup, MS Santa Cruz. MS Santa Cruz only does the Galapagos Islands. That's our specialist ship around the Galapagos Islands. MS Spitsbergen, and finally MS Nordstjernen, which is actually going to be based out of Svalbard. MS Spitsbergen next year is going to be doing some lovely itineraries out of Scotland, going up to Svalbard, Spitsbergen, going over to Greenland and Iceland as well. So there's some beautiful itineraries that each of these ships do. In terms of what's included, like I said before, it is very different to our coastal product. First off, again, you've got meals throughout. That's all included, snacks, etc., all included. We've also got beer, wine, non-alcoholic drinks with lunch and dinner, as well as coffee and tea throughout the day, as much as you'd like to. There is Wi-Fi on board. I'm sure you can imagine when you're circumnavigating the Drake's Passage and you're going through the little inlets of Antarctica, Wi-Fi reception is not going to be the best. But what we try to say to people is the Wi-Fi will be strong enough to send and receive emails, do some social media posting if you want to, but you're not going to be able to use it for streaming services or download, etc. You've got the use of equipment on board, so walking boots, walking poles. Accidents do happen and boots can split, etc. So we have spares there for customers. They're totally free of charge. Expedition jacket. Every single person, the first thing they do when they get on board, once they've checked in, is they go to the lecture hall to have a small meeting. But that's where everyone gets given our branded expedition jacket. Now, this serves 2 purposes. One, it means when you're in the destination, you've got a nice memento to take back. It's a Hallie Hansen wind and water resistant jacket, so it means you can stay nice and cool and dry in these areas. But it also has a safety element. You'll see the people there on that small little tender boat. It is a bright red jacket with a yellow hood. So when you're in these cold water destinations, stand out. So it's a safety element there as well. Lectures on board, that we've got experts from everything from, like I said before, geography, marine biology, etc. So scientists in these destinations. We've got photography experts, we've got astronomy experts who are there to give you talks about different things in these destinations. You've got at least one excursion included every day. There are optional ones there if you want to, and there's no expectation of tips on board, so all gratuities are in fact included. The big thing that separates Hurtigruten and separates us on the expedition front is our actual expedition team. Like I said before, they're experts in the background in a range of areas, including geology, marine biology, ornithology, etc. And you'll do various excursions with these guys. So whether that's a hike, nature walks, a talk, and so on and so forth, sled adventures, beach cleanups, etc. They're there to give you their knowledge and impart their knowledge onto you for any questions that you may have during that journey. There's going to be different levels of activity. So again, you don't need to be super fit. You don't need to be like Jenny running marathons. You can be like me and just go and have a nice walk around, etc. You can enjoy a slightly more adventurous hike if you want to, but you can also do things a little bit more easy if you so wish as well. There's also things like canoeing and paddleboarding on board. The big thing on Expedition is, like I said before, you're not going to be docked up in destination. You're going to be using one of these fantastic tenders when you go into the destinations. So if I was to paint a picture where you're going along the beautiful British Isles, you're sailing from Dover, you're going past the Scilly Isles, you're going past Foy, you're going down the coast of Wales up into Scotland. One of the places that we dock up is Stornoway, St Kilda and Fort William. Now, those are very, very remote areas that you can imagine you can't necessarily get a ship docked into those regions. So what we do is we anchor at sea, we anchor just away from port, and our guests are helped onto these tenders. We've got a maximum number that can be helped on board. And what guests will be doing is they'll be joining these small ships. They'll go for a little cruise around as well to take photos of the scenery and so on and so forth. But we'll be using these ships to get to more remote areas. So it means you're going to be off the beaten track a little bit more, away from the tourists and away from the crowds. And we use those boats purely because it allows us to access to remote places. They're very safe and rugged. So I once had someone ask me, they're inflatable boats, what happens if they burst? Well, there's 6 layers to that inflation. So if one part bursts, we've got 5 others there that can help us get back to the ship, get on another one and come back out again. But it also means they're very maneuverable. So you're sailing along, you've got animals coming up by you, going along rocky areas. It means we can be fluid with what we're actually doing. These are expeditions. So part of that is the adventure. It's being fluid with what's happening and not taking things so structured as we journey along. In terms of how it's organised, every guest, when they get on board, they're given one of these tags. So there'll be different ones: orca, gannet, porpoise, sea lion, and so on and so forth. Everyone's allocated into a group. And what they'll see on an app, on their board, on the TV in their room, is a schedule of what's on every single day and what group is allocated to those schedules and what boarding times are going to be on there as well. So there's a set time for people to go on. So we aren't seeing loads of people go down at one time. It's all allocated by groups and so on. We communicate guests through a daily program. You've obviously got that information coming through on the TV screens in your rooms. You've obviously got it in the public areas as well, but you've got various lectures on board, Hurtigruten movies, destination lectures and so on. On your TV, you've got your daily program, so you can stay up to date with everything that's happening. But it also means that if you don't want to go down to the lecture hall and listen to a presentation, you can do that from your room. It is live streamed as well, if you so wish. Public announcements. So when Jenny went to do the Northern Lights, when I go to do it later on in October, if you're in bed, you can actually set on these announcements in your room. So if they see the Northern Lights, if they see a pod of whales or something exciting, the announcement will come directly through into your room, so it knows that people then can go head on to the top deck if they want to. They can head down to the viewing platforms and so on and so forth. So all that information can be relayed through into your cabin. Now, if you don't want those on, you can turn them off if you want to, but most people keep them on because of the areas you're visiting. Something that is very, very exciting that we enjoy, and a lot of guests give us really great feedback, is when they're on board, are our citizen science programs. Now, what these are opportunities for our guests when they're on board to take part and be quite engaged within various scientific research programs throughout the world. So there's lots of things that people can do, and again, this is just to involve our guests, but it has real world applications as well. So universities all around the world are part of citizen science, and what it means is guests can take photos, they can go take areas where they're going to check the amount of algae in a certain area, or the phytoplankton in certain areas. They can check the migration of whales, etc. on board, taking photos. They upload these photos, they upload this data with the help from our scientists on board, and they get passed through to these different lectures and these different universities around the world to help with their understanding and help with their information gathering as well. You've obviously got the science centres on board, the science centre on board there. We also do various beach cleans. So in various destinations you can go to around the Isle of Man or around the coast of Ireland, etc. You can actually go and take part and be part of a beach cleanup. So some people just want to help out in those areas, and it is a nice example where people from different walks of life can all get involved together. They can all help out and feel like they're contributing something back to that destination that they've been to. Certain things that Herituation do, just really unique things as well. So when they go to Antarctica, we actually take a carpenter on board. And the reason we do that is because when you sail from Ushuaia, it's a little wooden dock that a lot of people use. So we take a carpenter. So when we're sailing around Antarctica, they can be there and they can help rebuild some of the docking areas. They can help, you know, with the local communities and stuff like that. So all these experts that we have on board are there to give back into these destinations. Now, the types of excursions that people can do aren't just beach cleanups, they're guided walks. You've got a little bit of free time if you want to, but as I mentioned before, you can do activities that are a little bit more energetic if you want to. They can be a little bit more relaxed if you want to. So if you want to do a bus tour around a town or a city, etc., you can do that. You've got guided tours like you've got here at the Norwegian Fjord Centre. So nice low activity level, just gives you an opportunity to learn more about the fjords around Norway. You've got the Flam Railway that you can do as well if you want to. This is an optional excursion. This is just to give you an idea of the certain things you can do on board. If you want to do something a little bit more adventurous, you can do a guided e-bike tour around the mountains of Norway. And then in terms of things that are included, you've got city strolls, nature hikes, you've got a hike to Forsand where you can go. This is a hard hike as well, so you can be able to go up the mountains having these beautiful panoramic views of the Norwegian fjords. So if you want to do something like that, you absolutely can do. You've got the opportunity for kayaking and stand-up paddle boarding. You don't need to be an expert in this. There's lots of training that's given to people when they get there, but it gives you a chance to get up close and personal to the region that you're visiting. So we've seen pictures of people in Norway having whales come right up close to their kayaks, to the, you know, leopard seals, etc., coming right up close to the guests, so you can take amazing photos and just have something really totally unique in this region. So great opportunity to do something different, to have a different viewpoint of these regions. Stand-up paddleboarding is really popular at the moment as well for us. And people can book them on board. You can book them obviously in advance as well. We do encourage people to book those excursions in advance because it just to make sure that there are, you know, activities are booked up for people so they aren't disappointed when they get on board. When people do make a booking, they can get on the Hurtigruten app and they can see a plan of what they're going to do every single day. They can see a plan of what excursions they've booked and what they've chosen, etc. as well. And you can book all those through with Bluewater as well. Now, one thing that has been very new to us over the last couple of years are expeditions from the UK, which have proven very, very popular. As I said before, MS Spitsbergen is going to be sailing out of Glasgow, and MS Maud is currently sailing out of Dover around the British Isles. So you've got a couple of options with both ships. Like I said, you've got the British Isles sailing, so from Dover right up to Stornoway and St Kilda and then back round to Dover. You've obviously got Northern Lights and fjords as well, so if you want to do an ex-UK cruise, not have to worry about jumping on the flight, etc. You can travel down to Dover and then sail up to the beautiful Norwegian coast, all the way up to Honningsvåg, and then coming back down to Dover as well. In terms of the sustainability message, like I touched on before, all of our ships, if they're not hybrid powered currently, they're going to be changed over into hybrid powered over the course of the next few years because that sustainable messaging is so strong with Hurtigruten and what we want to do moving forward. These two ships, Roald Amundsen and Fridtjof Nansen, were the first hybrid power ships introduced into the cruise sector, and that's something we're going to do more of as we go. Now, in terms of decor on board, these are some images from our two new ships. The ships that haven't been refurbed are going to have a similar design to this when they do get refurbished, but at the moment, this is the standard that we've got on MS Roald Amundsen and Fridtjof Nansen. So beautiful, very modern and contemporary, very Scandinavian in design, as you can imagine. Going into the bedrooms, so again, very spacious, very comfortable. You've got a varied selection there of rooms, so coming in from the balcony rooms to just an outside cabin to the suite as well in the top right hand corner. And as mentioned before, your citizen science program. So these are some of the ones that people can take part in, which is fjord photo. So they take in information from the waters to check pollution levels, glacial water levels, etc. You can do seabird research, sea leopard research, whale research, taking photos of their migration, etc. So people can really get involved in each of these regions. As I mentioned before, the beach cleanups that we'll take part in for people. And this was something that I want to just touch on very well, very quickly as well. Every single person that travels on a Hurtigruten ship, we take away some of that money and we put it into our Herituation Foundation. Now, this has got real world applications, so we actually invest in the areas that you're visiting. So whether that's building schools and helping out communities, building wells, etc. This particular photo here is in Svalbard, so in Greenland. Back in 2015, there was a huge avalanche in Greenland where quite a few people went missing, and the number of the local residents went out with their own dogs to search and try and help and try and find some of the people that were missing. From that, they've then set up their own dog rescue volunteer group, and that's carried on now. And part of the Herituation Foundation is we invest money into training, into equipment to help with this very, very important organisation. And there's things like this in every destination that we go to visit. Just wanted to touch on a couple of things now that are new for this year and going into next year. As I mentioned before, we're moving into a lot more warm water expedition cruising, two of which, one is West Africa and Cape Verde, and the other one is the Galapagos Islands. So first off with the Galapagos, there's various ways of doing this. So you can do the circumnavigation of the Galapagos Islands, you can do a shorter voyage if you want to as well, but you can also partner this up with some land-based trips. So you can do it around Machu Picchu, going into Peru a little bit more, going into Cusco and Lima and so on and so forth, or you can partner this up with going through along the Panama Canal as well. So there's a lot of different options that you can do with the Galapagos Islands, and it really is an amazing place to see just a huge variety of marine life. And then finally, just to finish off, the other itinerary we've got, which is new for this year, like I say, is West Africa and Cape Verde. Now, you can travel along this route as well, and you can finish this up in Portugal and Canary Islands, etc. as well. But this particular itinerary is new for this year, allows you some fantastic locations that are rich in geographical wonders, volcanoes and so on and so forth, but also giving the opportunity to see some amazing wildlife as well. So hopefully that's given you an idea of what you can expect on Herituation, the variety of itineraries and destinations that we visit, but also an important work that we do in some of these regions that guests can help to do as well. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen and see if Jenny's got any questions for me at all.
No questions as such, James, just really sort of comments, because I mean, I know the Herituation product, I know that it's not just Norway anymore, but actually seeing those videos and looking at the destinations that you go to and how the company has developed is really quite fascinating. And I think for people who've travelled with Hurtigruten before, and especially sort of going back, 5-10 years, their perception will still be it's all Norway coast. And actually the company has come on leaps and bounds since then. And, Africa, the Galapagos, these warmer destinations, all expedition, of course, but wow, they look fantastic. The videos are great, and you've just opened up, new areas to discover with Hurtigruten, really, whilst still keeping those traditional sort of colder destinations.
Definitely. I think when I first knew about Hurtigruten, it was always polar bears and penguins. That was really all anyone knew them for. So to see the variety, and we can't announce anything yet, but over the next few months, we're going to be announcing some newer destinations, and they're just going to be worlds apart from what we've ever done before in terms of that warm water expedition. So, when we do announce it, I want to be the first one to go on board them. So,
of course, yeah. In terms of the ships as well, there were a couple of things that I really picked up on there. I know you said about the announcements, and that did actually happen to us. Northern Lights appeared in the middle of the night, as they often do, and we had the announcement system set up in our stateroom, so it did come over the tannoy, and we did get up in the middle of the night because you don't want to miss a spectacular display of the Northern Lights, of course. But in terms of things like the apps and then just the designs of the ship, going back to when I travelled with Hurtigruten, and I know some of the ships are still awaiting sort of refurbishment on the Norwegian coast, but definitely when we're looking at the expedition ships and some of those vessels that are sailing on the Norwegian coast, rather than being sort of ferries built with passenger comfort in mind, they're now very much more along that Scandinavian chic cruise ship design, and much more about that kind of voyage experience than they perhaps were previously. So it's nice to see that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that I think in the best world in the world, you can go to some of these most amazing destinations, but you still want to be in a relatively nice level of comfort. So the two new ships, Roald Amundsen and Fridtjof Nansen, they were actually designed by Rolls-Royce. They've got a patented design to, one, not make them more efficient as they go through the water, but obviously then that gives us the freedom that we can then put some more investment into the decor, etc. So again, hopefully we're going to get more of our ships in line with that look and feel, because me and you have been in cruise for a while, and some of the ships are absolutely lovely and are very comfortable, but those two new ships and the ones that are being refurbed are some of the most premium that you'll see, and they've got a lovely look and feel to them.
Yeah, great. And you talked about the inclusions and the food on board, spectacular cuisine on board, all very regional to the areas that you're actually traveling to. In terms of sort of release dates, where are we up to at the minute with regards to when people can book for, and what kind of early booking discounts have we got in place at the minute?
Yeah, so we've got a few offers out at the moment. So we've got a huge amount of flight inclusive offers. We've reduced the price in some of our itineraries into next year as well, into sort of Q1 and Q2, especially around those British Isles, etc., around Svalbard and Spitsbergen and Iceland and Greenland.
You've still got capacity for sort of, I know you mentioned Q1 and Q2 there, Q1 being January through to March, yes, and then Q2 April through to the end of June, early July, those 3 months. How are we looking for the back end of this year, so for 2022 and sort of into 2023? Still plenty of availability?
Yeah, so I think the biggest amount of availability, I think one of the biggest selling points when it gets to our winter time is Antarctica. That's the real selling feature. Now that does tend to sell relatively quickly, so more looking into end of next year for Antarctica. There are some little pockets of availability, especially into early part of next year for Antarctica, but for now, for the remainder of the year, the focus really is on those Norwegian coast sailings, because it's so popular with the Northern Lights, as you know, because it's such an amazing thing to hopefully see, and a totally different way to experience Norway during winter. We've got our charters from regional airports that are going on from sort of end of October, early November through to February of next year, where we've got various offers. Now, I think we've got pricing from $12.99 for the complete round voyage. So 12 days, including flights, at $12.99 full board isn't too bad.
That's not bad at all. And you gave us, with Bluewater Holidays, a special offer on that for passengers who can travel from Newcastle. I think it was 199 is actually the leading that 25th of November departure, I think, or somewhere close to that.
Yeah, so Bluewater customers have got essentially a £100 discount off the advertised price that you can see everywhere else on that particular charter. So again, the charters and that Norwegian coast is what's most popular for us now as we end up towards the end of the year, and then early part of next year as well.
Yeah, and of course the best thing for anyone to do is contact the team at Bluewater Holidays. I'm showing the details on the screen now, including our website address, which is www.cruisingholidays.co.uk, and you can search by supplier Hurtigruten, and it will give you all the different cruises that we offer, or that Hurtigruten offer, and are bookable through Bluewater Holidays. Of course, ring us with your requirements or send us an email. Again, the contact details are on the screen at the moment. We're open Monday to Friday, 9 AM till 5:30 PM. Our team have been with us a long time and they are experts. Every single one of them has travelled with Hurtigruten at some point, so they know the Hurtigruten cruises and voyages inside out, and they'll be able to give you their expert advice. Ring us with your requirements and we can have a look into the availability. We'll have a look at the offers and the various different details for you as well, so we can certainly do that. So James, thank you ever so much for your time today. It's been a pleasure, great presentation. And of course, if anybody has any questions at all, then they can email us at Bluewater Holidays. We should know the answer, but if we don't, we have a very good relationship with James here. We can always contact him and he'll be able to answer those questions for us. So absolutely. Thank you very much, James, and to everyone listening, thank you very much for joining the webinar. It's been a pleasure to have you here today. Thank you.
Thanks, Jenny. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.